Hello everyone, we are back and we have a guest back here. Don't mind, this is a Kumechacha cat. She's going to keep us busy here for 1 minute or two while we get Grace here. Oh, perfect, perfect. Sending you an invite right now. Kumechacha, Kalisi, say hi to the Kumechacha family. Say hi to the Tujipange Africa family. Grace is about to join us here. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Hi, Kalis. Kumechacha.
Hapa, Kumechacha Denver.
Kumechacha, Philadelphia. This cat of yours likes to join us in every show, so
Yeah, she seems
we
to
will
know.
make them a part of our program.
She seems to know when we're about to go live. And she just climbs to say hi. I don't know. She's very smart, this Kalisi cat.
So smart for its own good.
Kumechacha Grace.
Kumechacha.
Kumechacha.
Kumechacha kweli, kumechacha na baridi. It's cold in Philadelphia. How is Denver?
Denver actually has been experiencing some warm weather this weekend after a week of snow. For those of you who follow our Tujipange Africa media page, we were broadcasting live from a snowstorm in Denver at the airport. So that's been our life the past few days. This heat has just been coming as a reprieve for us. Poleni sana.
Poleni sana.
Wow.
Okay.
Grace,
So, Grace, are we gonna start right away since we wasted some time in testing?
Oh, I think we're right on time. Sorry as I go off screen, but here I'm back. It's just 4:02, Grace. We're right just 1 or 2 minutes out, but I told our viewers to wait for us. We were coming, but si tumefika, kumechacha.
Tumefika na Kumechacha, and we welcome everybody to the studio, Kumechacha Tujipange Studios, both in Denver and Philadelphia.
Yes, Grace, I don't know if you can hear me clearly. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, and you can hear I'm playing some African music in the background. I don't know if you can hear it.
I know it almost sounds like Tarab. I was playing Tarab here.
Really?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. DJ, playing here in the background, and will be that the African Classic playlist on our Tujipange YouTube page will be playing that. So enjoy. Nanis Bright. Wow, good to see
Nanis,
you.
hi, how is Canada?
Hi from Canada. Wow, Grace, I'm so excited for this episode.
Yes. Yeah. Tuna furaha sana.
Yes. So how have you been, Grace? It's been another 2 weeks since we've been part of this platform. As you know, I changed our time to every other Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Grace is in Denver. Me, Grace, Grace, you're in Philadelphia. I'm in Denver. Trying to bring home closer to you as much as we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I am fine here and I'm quite excited. Of course, we will begin with self-care as usual. Grace, what did you do for self-care this week?
You know, Grace, I actually, part of my self-care is usually, excuse me while I adjust the camera so you can see me well. This outfit is brought to you by Hoto Freak, and I'll share more details as we go. Excuse me just for 1 second, Grace, Pole Sana. But what I've been planning to do for self-care after this show is to actually do this. Grace, I don't know if you know what this is.
Oh my goodness, that looks like aloe vera.
Yes. I've been having a very interesting hair week, and I've known about the properties of aloe vera, that you can use it to condition your hair. With it getting very cold, your hair tends to get very brittle, and so as much as I can do to condition my hair and take care of it, condition it well, so when I go to work tomorrow, I have at least some hair that's bouncy. I'm going to prepare this tonight, and that's going to be my self-care this weekend. What about you, Grace? What did you do?
Wow, that's amazing. Grace, I like your products. I like your Grey Shea butter. As you can see, I'm not really a lipstick person, but I did put some lip balm, which you made. And maybe in the future, you need to tell us a little more about your products. Some of these products you make for the lips and for the hair. For today, as you can see, I'm just wearing mke nyumbani on my hair.
Classic mke nyumbani.
Yeah.
that show everyone sat and watched Mke Nyumbani?
Yes, today I'm Mke Nyumbani with my
Oh,
headscarf.
good, good.
Yes,
John,
yes.
thank you for joining us. Monique, you said you cannot hear our voices. Grace, let me put on headphones just
Okay.
to see if it gets better. Hold on as I step out of the shot. Enjoy the scenery in the back. Okay, I am back. Did you move to Denver or am I just traveling? Joanne, I moved to Denver about, when was it, Grace, that I moved? January? I moved to and here I've been for the past 8 months. Yeah, so Grace, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you
Okay,
quite well. Just confirm
okay.
with the viewers if you can hear us.
Yes, Monique, let us know if this is better. Everyone, thank you for everyone for who's joining us right now. Thank you so much for your feedback as we get this show better and better. So Grace, you were saying something. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, my self-care this weekend, I was just watching movies and not
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah, I tried as hard as possible not to think about anything or of anything. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was resting my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've
Mm-hmm.
been watching. I think I've watched movies back to back this weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really good for me. Very stimulating.
Yeah,
Yeah, I I
you
was
turn on a
watching
different part of your brain.
Criminal
Mm-hmm.
Minds. Yeah, and how
Oh.
and how dangerous people can be. Just
Mm-hmm.
wow, how wicked people can be, and how
Mm-hmm.
normally the person you expect not to have committed the crime is the one. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the
Mm-hmm.
crimes are committed by the people very close to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was my self-care, just to be more cautious,
Wow.
more alert. Of course,
There's
it's a
nothing wrong
movie,
with
but
that.
huh?
There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, Grace,
Mhm.
America, there's so many shows that talk about criminals and criminal minds, about how they mind
Mhm.
things. You can spend
Mhm.
24 hours just watching that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So wow, Grace, that's a nice mug. I was before you joined in, I was showing off my Ketepa tea.
Yeah,
Your mug looks so beautiful. You should send me some. We had some for our Grace and Grace show when we were
I broke
together.
those ones. I don't know why they broke. I think we'll get new cups for our show.
Yes, yes,
I remember
coming soon.
when we were young, we breaking a plate was a big deal because getting
Yeah.
those plates were not easy. So if you were washing plates and you broke them, you would have to concoct a story to explain.
Sometimes you would hide them so that they are not caught, and but then your parents would always count the number of plates. Those
They
are very
knew.
precious plates. They knew if one was missing. They found one in the dustbin and no one said anything.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone.
I used to Rwanda. I used to Rwanda those plates. Like I don't know why I broke so many plates at a go, but I used to try and carry all the plates in one tray after washing,
Uh-huh.
and they would
Uh-huh.
all fall. Somehow I would slip or something, and then hiding them was now an even harder part of the job. And then being found.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, good times, Grace.
Mm.
As we start the show, it's about Grace will help us keep time. As we're talking and reminiscing about the past, Grace, we were sharing about what we wanted to talk about this week.
Yes.
And we want to talk about this is going to be a mini book club. I'm sure that Grace and I share this passion, but I know that you watching have shared this passion before and probably still do. And that's
Yeah.
about set books. For me, Grace, high school set books were almost life-changing, revolutionaries. I don't know about you. You know, I
Yes.
love the river in the source.
Um,
I low-key love Merchant of Venice, but I won't say I love it. I have such a relationship with these set books, and it's good to reflect on what those were. Especially, I know KCPE it's around KCPE season. It's going to be about KCSE season, so a lot brings back a lot of memories around this time.
yeah, I know set books were our favorite. I remember people used to laugh at us, those of us who are literature lovers. Like we just
Hmm.
went to school to read stories, to tell stories. So they did not take us
Yeah.
seriously. Yeah, but it was a big deal. I remember I had so many set books to do because
Hmm.
uh, I went.
Hello.
Grace, sorry, I don't know why some people are texting me right now.
Oh no. Tell them if they're on the Kumechacha show. Tell them that you tell
I'm
your
just seeing the
friends.
message. I'm just seeing the messages flashing across my screen. But I went to 4 different high schools.
Uh-huh.
I would not call myself a problem child, but I went to 4 different. I went to 4 different high schools, and then I went to. I did literature in university, and then I did literature throughout my school life, and in college I majored in literature. So I have more than I think I have more than 40, 50 set books that I did.
Wow. Ace, Grace.
Yeah,
Wow.
because in third year in college, that was the only thing we did, literature. We didn't do any other subject. So we did literature for 1 whole year. So we were doing African literature, Russian, American, Caribbean, everything.
Yeah.
But what really, I would say, shaped my life were the books I did in high school. Books like Betrayal in the City, The Government Inspector, Merchant of Venice, Kinjekitile and Mashetani, Weep Not Cry by Ngugi. And then poems from East Africa were really, really effective. Like those poems were written with a very reflective mind. Yeah.
Grace, before we even get into the books, because you talked, it's interesting that we are almost 20 years apart, and both of us did Merchant of Venice at the same time. So that's also a beauty about it, that I didn't realize that we did that same thing, that it came back again. And that's fascinating. I'm curious and to hear your thoughts and exchange ideas. The same with Kifo Kisimani. That was one of the plays that was so much political, there was so much activism, so much voice that came through with that Swahili story. And you also did it, and it's fascinating to see how interconnected that stuff can be. And Grace, I remember my first experience. I don't know what your first experience with set books was, but I first experienced set books. It's somewhat hilarious. The first week of secondary school in Form 1, everyone is new. At least the first week of school, people didn't really have classes. But I remember I always used to look and see, hey, all of us are supposed to be active. We can't just stay. We have to be studying. We can't be sleeping. So one desk would have someone reading them Atlas because they wanted to make sure they knew all the geographical mapping in the geography quiz. Another person was reading the Kamusi and the dictionary to make sure that when they wrote their that it was just right. But there were some people that read books, some set books, and I was curious about them because it was my first experience really reading about African authors. I may have heard about the Chinua Achebes, but Margaret Ogola was a new person for me. The person who wrote Kifo Kisimani was a new person for me. I got introduced to so many writers during that first week. And I was, although the school things became more important then, when it became us for Form 3, we had our opportunity to have our set books. So it was hilarious seeing how people made through their first week of school. You either had a Kamusi or you had, hopefully, the river and the source. You had Animal Farm, Shamba la Wanyama. So Grace, you seem to have a different story to what your set book experience was.
Yeah, my set book experience was a bit different from yours or than yours, as they say here, because I had many sisters and brothers ahead of me in the family. I was like around the 7th on the line. And by the time I went to high school, they were in high school already, and some had already finished high school. So I'd already had exposure to literature while I was still in primary school, because they would come and tell these stories about Shakespeare's Othello and the Crucible and all the literature textbooks that they would be reading them at home. They would be discussing them. They were talking about some lady called Ara Karenina, like a married woman who slept with somebody, and it was like, wow, how could a married woman elope? During those days. They talked about Leo Tolstoy's One Piece. Like, my mind was already filled with these creative characters. And when I got to Form 1, I already had decided in my mind I was going to focus on the area of literature, because literature really, it exposed my world. It expanded my world. I was able to travel to other places. I was able to visit other cultures. I was able to hear about Weep Not Child, Ngugi's Weep Not Child, and the Mau Mau uprisals, and who are the home guards who betrayed the others and who are now benefiting from the fruits of a war they never even fought. Yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really
Yeah.
had an impressionable mark on me, the books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. For me, Grace, you get to journey into different worlds, but for me, it was a journey internally as well. There were some books that evoked some feelings in me, and I think have been a key experiences into the person I've become today. Being socially minded, understanding some of the social issues that impact people. That is what
Mm,
drew me, the tensions that happened, because the stories weren't just stories, they had
mm,
themes to it. If you talk about Coming to Birth by Marjorie Olude McGoy, she talks about the relationship at a relationship emerging between two Luo people, and part of
mm,
that was also representation mattering. Wow, when was it that I saw a couple who are from my tribe, having a storyline, right, that was somewhat culturally relevant and also mirrored the story of Kenyan independence, something that I hadn't lived through myself, but I could see just how those things were so relevant. When I talked about when I read about the Merchant of Venice, that's when I realized that there
mm,
was anti-Semitism. Although I didn't know what it was, I realized that there was differential treatment happening in for these different characters, and it
mhm,
set me upon a path, Grace, that I feel that. As much as our Kenyan education system may seem to look down upon people that participate in the humanities and the arts,
mm,
these are some of the beginning of critical thinking, Grace, internal reflection, and seeing where you fit among these stories.
yeah.
Mwisho Akosa talks about. We'll get into all of that, but
We'll
it's
get into that,
pretty
but
super
Grace,
exciting.
just to interject at that point, when you talk of
Yeah.
Marjorie Olude, that was one of the best authors ever. But do you know
Mm-hmm.
that I knew Marjorie Olude when I was a child? I was only 6 years old, and she was my neighbor.
Really?
Yeah, we
How?
were neighbors with Marjorie and her family
Mm-hmm.
in Kisumu. And I
Wow.
remember I used to be a very naughty child, and one of the days I had hurt my toe. Yeah, I did something interesting and hurt my toe and had to be rushed to the theater. And
Uh-huh.
she nursed that toe for a long time. And she
Mm-hmm.
also used to join my mother in the women's fellowship every Saturday
Mm-hmm.
afternoon in Milimani.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
it's surprising that years later, as a journalist, I went to her house in Ngara to interview her
Mm-hmm.
about her stories.
Really?
Yeah, so I felt like I had
Wow.
made a full circle.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's really amazing.
Yeah,
That's
she had
actually
beautiful
interesting.
books. Nyaloka,
Mm-hmm.
Atieno Yo. Some of our
Mm-hmm.
musicians have converted her song
Mm-hmm.
into music. You know, Susan Owiya's song Atieno Yo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Wow, wow,
amazing.
wow.
Yeah.
Such
Atieno
great
washes
history.
dishes. Atieno plucks the chicken. Better sat down
Mm-hmm.
in the kitchen. Atieno is
Yeah.
6 years old. Atieno, it shows how little girls were used as not as slaves, but at the age of 6, we really worked hard. Right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the way I see life now, kids who are 6 years old 6 year olds are children. You can't
Mm-hmm.
send them, you can't touch them. They're supposed to be fed. When we
Mm-hmm.
were six
Mm-hmm.
years old, we were making ugali
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
cooking and taking and washing other kids. We were babysitting.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really a different life. But there are people who took children to Nairobi, to the cities, to Mombasa, and turned them into
Mm-hmm.
slaves, made them
Mm-hmm.
work like
Mm-hmm.
do adult work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Grace, that brings me on a topic of these stories. Like we've said, they've captured things that are very relevant in our local culture.
Mm,
And I'm curious that I also read books that were political in nature, and I'm
mm,
curious about what the implications of these writers writing about these themes. What were the implications of reading these types of stories that brought to your face that type of brought into contrast culture or things that were coming in conflict with what was happening in real life. Because if you talk about some stories that are super relevant, you talked about betrayal in the city.
mhm.
Those are stories that reflected everyday life, and they were being
Actually,
released at times where stories like that
yeah.
were super relevant.
Yeah, actually, the writers during my time in school and in college had it rough. We had we had writers going into exile. We
Mm-hmm.
had Ngugi,
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Mugo, we had Mwai, we had, I think, Raila, we had Nyang Nyong'o, we had all that group of
Mm-hmm.
literary writers
Mm-hmm.
going into exile because of their writing, being
Mm-hmm.
detained in prison. Like writing that time was serious because they wrote to raise political awareness, to raise
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, to hold
Mm-hmm.
a revolt against the government. Because what
Mm-hmm.
happened with some of the writers, we had one of our lecturers in the university then who demonstrate with us on the streets. We had Caspar Odegia Wunda, I'll never forget, being without on the streets,
Mm-hmm.
eating the tear gas, as we say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they
Mm-hmm.
were writers of conscience, and we have fewer writers of conscience now, yeah. But they were
Mm-hmm.
serious writers of conscience, and when they wrote, they were writing to address issues of post-independence. A lot of our leaders that came into power failed us, they betrayed us, yeah. They did not
Mm-hmm.
come to be of service to us. They came to nyakua. What is to nyakua in
Mm-hmm.
English? Right? They came
To grab,
to
to grab, to
grab land, to
steal.
grab, yeah,
Yes,
it was an
yes.
opportunity for them to make themselves
Mm-hmm.
rich. It was an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for them to employ their sisters and brothers and children into office. They did not
Mm-hmm.
give an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to others. They
Mm-hmm.
suppressed voices of dissent. They did not
Mm-hmm.
allow university students to
Mm-hmm.
express themselves. They did not,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who criticized the government then would either disappear, they would be shot. Remember J.M. Kariuki, remember Robert Ouko, remember all the political deaths. A lot of political deaths happened. You remember Bishop
Mm-hmm.
Muge, Alexander Muge, a lot of political deaths, anybody who criticized the government. And then when I'm looking at betrayal in the city, and we had themes of corruption, tribalism, nepotism, and I remember Mulili, I remember them calling phrases like the green grass in the snake, or the green snake in
Mm-hmm.
the grass. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but Imbuka portrayed that story very well, yeah, because it was
Mm-hmm.
a regime that was oppressive, and it killed its leader. It was a regime that ate its own children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the government rewarded some of the members, yeah, some of its members who did what they wanted. Look at the student Adika who was shot on the streets of Nairobi during
Mm-hmm.
demonstrations. So
Mm-hmm.
this book is based in Kafira, but Kafira is really Africa, and it's
Mm-hmm.
relevant to
Mm-hmm.
any African state. So
Mm-hmm.
the parents of Adika cannot, they want to bury him, but the government is giving conditions that nobody's allowed to weep at this funeral because this student died during demonstrations, and nobody's allowed to give a speech. Remember how important speech, or neno as we call it, speech is such an important part of funerals, the eulogy.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot
Mm-hmm.
leave it out. So
Mm-hmm.
Adika was not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to have speeches in his funeral. His parents were supposed to shave him according to culture. But when
Mm-hmm.
they went, they found that someone had upset the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was not
Mm-hmm.
allowed, they did not allow him to be shaved. So having that conflict, one of the lecturers um, decided to defy the government, and he was jailed for that. Yeah. So imagine what an oppressive system of government that was. And then the
Mm-hmm.
person who was effecting all this was rewarded with a farm, and he also happened to be the cousin of the president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
this book really turned us into political activists at a very early age. And we
Mm-hmm.
always treated the government with suspicion, even up to now. Because if
Mm-hmm.
this could
Mm-hmm.
happen, this is not why we fought for independence. This is not why
Mm-hmm.
people lost their lives. For
Mm-hmm.
government to come into power and continue clinging. And up to now, they continue clinging to power. They do
Mm-hmm.
not want to hand over leadership. They say youth are leadership of tomorrow. When is tomorrow? When is tomorrow? Tomorrow never
Wow.
comes. We want the youth to be leaders today, and
Mm-hmm.
to bring in their energy and their new ideas so that they can.
Grace is preaching. Grace
All
is
right,
preaching. Grace
hallelujah.
is
Let me
preaching.
tell
Well,
you about me.
Grace. It's so interesting when I hear about, like, we read the same books, but like the way that we thought about, or at least let me talk only about me.
Yeah.
The way that we perceived of these stories, they were perceived much as school setting. I think the environment that we were in, I went to school in 2004 to 2007, and life was different back then. It was two multi-party was coming into view. Mwai Kibaki had ruled primary free education for all just I think when I was in class 8. So we were in a different political time. And I think a lot of the work that we were doing was getting reacquainted with parts of African storytelling. I think this was when we started experiencing stories that, schools allowed us to read multiple stories that we may not have had in before us. I don't think reading as a culture begins in high school, I believe, because everyone has some equitable access to material to read and to apply critical thinking. So the books were, for us, they were windows into the past, but also windows into our own self-reflection. But it's interesting seeing you having built that similar type of energy, but you have that fire, that relevancy, that storyline. Our stories talked about post-independence. Our stories talked about rebellion. Stories talked about things that our country as Kenya was not experiencing at the time as I was doing this. That's those classes, but it's super interesting, Grace. What other book, Grace? Tell us about. Let me talk about. So Victoria is asking, is wanting the kids to read the books. We don't have them, but we will share. We're both going to share our top 3 books, and we'll share after the show. We'll share a link to them on Amazon. Write the names and the authors so that you may be able to find them too. I think that would be a good experience. Grace, say again the book that you were talking about, Betrayal in the City.
Oh, Betrayal in the City.
Mm-hmm.
Who wrote Betrayal in the City? Francis Imbuga, Professor Francis Imbuga.
Okay,
And then
Betrayal
there
in
was,
this. Mm-hmm.
there was Weep Not Child by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, which is really important in understanding the history of Kenya, the Mau Mau uprising and what it really took place. And
Grace, before you continue, I want to talk about we'll trade places. You've talked about yours. Me, I'm going to talk about mine, and then we'll go back and forth because I have a really interesting Kiswahili book. So the books that we read were both in we had set books in English and set books in Kiswahili, and so some of the books that I read was Mwisho wa Kosa. Or End of Scene by, I don't remember the person's first name, but is Zed Burhani. I'll share a link to this as well. It talks about, it's a story that centers around the conflict of tradition and modernity. And it's interesting, it centers around the story of Monica. Its stories in Kiswahili. It's in Kiswahili Mufti, Kiswahili Sahihi. So bring a dictionary or find a translation when you can. It talks about Monica and her family with Mzee Haji and Bitatu. Monica is a young woman who has studied abroad and is coming back. And the story, if you read the story, and it talks about how she comes off the airplane, bakbandika, bakbandua, ametembea kama, amemeremeta, she seems flippant, she seems distant when she comes off the airplane. And the family first is worried because they attribute it to jet lag. Of course, your family is, oh, mtoto wetu amechoka, our child is tired, we need to let them relax. And but they notice that this behavior, Monica's behavior, is not just a few days or a few weeks. Monica has changed. She doesn't respect her parents anymore. Her tradition and ideals are so much different because she believes that she studied abroad, she's lived abroad, and therefore what she's been used to is what she's going to do. She gets a great job, and the issue continues where she has a conflict with her father about staying late at night, about handling several responsibilities. When you go home, there are certain expectations, and she flies in the face of them, and it culminates in her running away after a quarrel, and something more serious culminates that leads to a sort of reconciliation, that leads to a process in which both parties must meet and reconcile. And let me tell you, the book is amazing. It's written, the Kiswahili is written in a beautiful way. It's a way to appreciate Kiswahili because the writing and the beautiful flow the flow of language is really wonderful. But it's super relevant. I wish I could find one on Amazon because it talks really much about the experiences, Grace, that we talk about what it means to live in the diaspora, what the relationships can be when you come home, who is right, who is wrong. Things are more complicated. It's not all black and white. So now that I've sat back, I've said, wow, Monica, I remember Monica. Have I had Monica tendencies?
So Grace,
yes.
It's important for children because before we even went to secondary school, we were reading some of the literature books at a less advanced version. We had books like Hekaya za Bunwasi, Kulela Ulela, Foolish Abdul.
Mayai Waziri wa Maradhi.
Yeah, Foolish Abdul, stuff like that. Then as we grew older, then we read more concrete books. Yeah, but I remember the Swahili books we did. You had to do a Swahili book during my time. That was in the 80s. You had to read it in Jekitile, Masaibu ya Ndugu Zeru, and Machetani. These are important. We did Penina Muhando. We did. I loved Ibrahim Hussein's book. So in Kinjekitile, this Shamam or diviner convinces the community during the Majimaji rebellion, during the German invasion of Tanzania, that if they get anointed or they drink this water, this holy water, none of the bulls will kill them. And they do that. They go into war believing that once they drink this special water, they will be proof. What do you call it? They will be
bulletproof.
Bulletproof, yes. So do you know how many thousands of people died in that region after drinking the water? Yeah,
Grace, it's
it,
an
it,
actual story. So they
it is an
document the
actual, yeah.
story
It is a
as it
documented
happened.
story, but the writer kind of turned it into a play, because those days you could not write memoirs and kind of plays with the stuff we write nowadays, because
Yeah.
you'll be arrested. You had to fictionalize the character. And that's really like an important aspect of literature, to fictionalize characters, because it helps you get into the character's mind. Yeah, it helps you, it creates an awareness, a level of consciousness, especially political consciousness. So you're able to enter the character's mind, and you're able to develop a culture of empathy. And a lot of people, I'm proud to say, who have done literature are very empathetic, because you understand cultures. You understand that there's better food than the one you eat in your mother's kitchen. Your mother's food is not the best in the whole world. And you learn through literature that there are different ways of solving problems. And that whatever has happened to you is not the worst. Other people have had tragedies. Look at what happens to Iwoma in the concubine. Yeah, any man that she marries dies. Yeah. Look
I
at that
remember
kind
that
of,
story. I did read
yeah,
that
yeah.
story.
She
Yeah,
had a gut
absolutely.
like mine.
So,
That enticed men.
yes,
It
yes, the
warmed way into
concubine.
men's hearts. But she was the wife of a goddess. Yeah. And any man, and they say they're women, I don't know what they call those kind of women or men, the ones who, when you get involved with them, you have to die. Yeah. Yeah, but
That
that
story, I
one,
read it and I was so confused. I was shocked with its ending, actually.
it's called
You know.
The Concubine by Elechi Amadi. Yeah, so this lady was, this woman was the wife of a king. She came from the lake. She came from the sea, from the waters. She was not of this world. Yeah, so the king, the jealous king, who was a god, a sea god, was jealous of her, and would not, any man that she got married to would get into an accident. Criminal minds.
Yeah, I so relevant. So we
Yeah.
see Nanis Bright is saying Animal Farm. Yes, Grace, I don't
Oh,
know if you read
Animal
Animal
Farm, Shamba la
Farm.
Wanyama. That was
Yes,
awesome.
she
Jojo.
also talks she also talks about the river and the source. Yes. I also
Yeah.
read the rivers and the source back in Form 1 when I was looking
Margaret
for something to
Ogola.
keep me
Wonderful.
busy. And
Wonderful.
what the quote that remains with me up until this day is that a home without daughters is like a river without a source. This is such a
Yes.
powerful message when it talks about the role of women in society. We know that there's societies that have femicide, that have that don't value women and their role in society. But that story is such a powerful tale of a generation of 3 women spanning 100 years, and just
Yes.
how those different decisions that they make and the different men and their families that are in their life influence them.
And
Such a
Grace,
great
I
story.
felt really sad. Like I wondered, because I've seen people who I really believe are in the literary world trash Margaret Ogola's book by saying that the men in her book die. But that's her story. That's a fiction. That's her experience. You cannot decide for a writer what you want them to put in their story. That was her experience. Those were the men. That was her. That was her fictionalized character. Maybe those were the men in her life. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the book
yeah.
may reflect the part of her society then, because a lot of men in our society during that time sat under trees drinking busa, while the women farmed in the forest. But to try and say, oh, we are pulling this book from the set books, or we do not like this book because Margaret Ogola, portrays the men as weak, that the men in her book die. Yeah. What about Julius Caesar and the others? Yeah, how are women portrayed in other books, and just in still set books? So the
Right, right.
prejudices still work, and that's why people need to read more books. Yeah, and also I think we try to create your own fiction. Do not create for a writer their fiction. Yeah, the writer has presented to you their story. We tend to diminish people's stories. Yeah, a lot.
Yes, and I think the idea here should be, sorry, Grace, I am moving this thing. I
Yeah,
apologize
you're
for the
dancing, but it's fine.
moving camera. I'm telling you, it's a technology by
I
force.
think you have a 360-degree boss chair. You know that boss, the chair the bosses sit on in the office and twist around when they want to fire you.
We are not playing in this Kumechacha studio. We are not
No.
playing everything we need. Grace, you're so right when you talk about, if you have a story to tell, and that's the role of storytelling. What is
Yeah.
preventing you from telling your own story, from
Own
creating
story,
your
yeah.
own world? Tell your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Don't come and camp in someone else's comments trying to tell your story. No, please don't. You
Yeah,
know,
create your own
seek
story.
help. There are writing consultants out there. Author Omar Ombara Writing Consultancy. Get yourself some help to
Get
tell your
yourself
own story.
tell your own
Yes,
story, because the power of your own story is very important. And what happened during this
yes.
discussion, diminishing and trashing Margaret Ogolle as the river and the source, that's one of the best books ever written.
It's
And she
amazing.
trashes,
It's an
and then
amazing book.
trashing it when she's already deceased, she's already dead, and she's not there to defend it. A writer does not even need to defend her story. That's her fiction. That's what happened. Yeah.
Yes, so as this is passion coming from a published author
Kumechacha hapa
Kumechacha,
Philadelphia. Yeah. Respect,
Kumechacha
right? Respect
kweli.
people's stories.
Yes,
Respect, everybody has a story to tell, but do not
yes,
do not derail your story
yes,
by your own personal opinion, and then
yes,
make your personal opinion into a fact. You have, and
yes.
literature distinguishes between fact and fiction. It
Mm-hmm,
already says it is a fiction.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
The author is
And
using
Grace,
their creative mind.
yes, Grace. Speaking of stories that last, despite what people say, let's talk about Merchant of Venice. You know, you wanted to
Yes.
share some tips around there. That's also another book that I read.
So
Um,
great. We're going to talk about Antonio, Portia, Portia, Bassanio, and Shylock. Remember this?
Grace, let me tell
These
you
are
when I open, let me just share before you get
Antonio,
into it.
Antonio. Huh?
When you open the book and you read, in sooth, I know not why I am so sad. And then the rest of I don't even understand what they are saying after it. Let me tell you, Grace, it was a problem the
That
first few
language,
weeks.
that language confused people. Some people in my class were discussing Merchant of Venice in Luo. So you can imagine. Huh? They were saying we want 1 pound, the exact pound of flesh. Huh? Ringo kilo cha. I don't know what a human flesh is called, because the flesh of a sheep is called,
Yeah.
we have mutton, we have veal, we have, I
Oh
don't know what
gosh.
human flesh is called. But this is a case where I think I like the Merchant of Venice because it brings the interesting themes that cuts across generations and cuts across age, yeah, and time. And the themes include the things we do for love. Yeah, look at what Antonio. Look at what Antonio wants to do for love. So I mean, Antonio does for his friend for love. So the story, basically, the plot is that Bassanio is in love with a rich woman, and he's really in debt. So he's looking for a rich woman to marry so that he can offset his debts and to
Like a sugar
identify.
mama.
Yeah, that's common behavior, especially now, this generation. Before we used to go and get married to nobody and start on the floor, but now people are clever. The men are looking for rich women to marry. So these things began before our time. Yeah, so roughly, Bassanio is wants to marry Portia. Or Portia. I don't know how they pronounce it, but we call her Portia. Yeah. So he goes to his friend Antonio to borrow money. Yeah, Antonio is a tradesman. He trades his stuff in the sea. So Antonio does not have money, but he really wants to help his friend get a wife. Yeah. So he goes to an enemy, someone they don't get along with, someone he's really been criticizing and making fun of, called Shylock. And Shylock agrees to borrow money, but Antonio becomes the guarantor. And you know how dangerous guarantors are when you he becomes a guarantor for Bassanio. But Bassanio says, Shylock says, I will give you the money, but you have to return it. If you don't return it, I want your piece of flesh. He wants the guarantor's piece of flesh. Yeah, 20 pounds of flesh, not more, not less. So this, the lady who Portia's father has died and left a will, and in the will he says the person who will marry Portia is supposed to identify 3 coffins. He has 3 coffins. One is made of lead, one is made of copper, and one is made of gold. So the person who picks the right coffin where his body is the one who's marries Portia. So people try the Prince of Morocco, the Prince of Aragon, they don't get it. But then when Bassanio comes, he gets it. Yeah, he picks the right coffin, which is made of lead, so he inherits the wealth. Yeah,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
Antonio's ships gets lost in the sea. They get lost in the sea, and now he doesn't have money to pay back Shylock. This is where the problem begins.
Mhm.
Shylock says,
Mhm.
"I want your piece of flesh."
Mhm.
Yeah,
My pound of flesh.
a pound of flesh. A pound of
Yes.
flesh. Yeah. So
Mhm.
you know the story, what happens, and the Portia and Bassanio, whatever, Portia pretends to be a young lawyer, and they go and
Mhm.
they tell him,
Mhm.
you can give the pound of flesh, but there must not be blood.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not your
Mhm.
pound of flesh, but there was in the contract, they didn't say that the person will be bleeding when you take
Mhm.
the pound of flesh. Yeah, but the
Mhm.
story
Mhm.
ends up well. But
Mhm.
just the things you learn. What are some of the things we do for love?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, what are some of
Crazy
the things?
things. Crazy
Crazy things.
things.
Yeah. And
And
do
also
people
just
borrow money? You
how,
borrow money for a wedding?
yeah.
You go
Mhm.
and take a
Mhm.
loan for a wedding. Yeah,
Mhm.
great. Let me tell you an interesting story. My neighbor, my neighbor cheated the girlfriend that he
Mhm.
was rich, but he went and
Mhm.
borrowed furniture, TV, and the bed, a double bed, whatever, from and his cousin. On the night of the wedding, after people came from church, the cousin went for his bed. Mhm.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But we borrow money. A lot of
Yeah.
times we borrow money. We
Mhm.
borrow money to impress people. We borrow money to buy
Mhm.
an engagement ring. Yeah.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
borrow money
Mhm.
to buy a car to impress men or women. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
that is one thing. Like what the things we do for love.
And
Yeah.
Grace, not only what people do, but the standards people set for love. Like, I'm wondering what Portia's father was thinking about
Mm.
setting a test like that in place. What is the role of love? What is the role of finding actual connections? You know, was it right for that type of system to exist? You know,
And
um,
did people marry for love those days? There were
right,
suitors. There really
right.
was not love. There was not love.
Mm-hmm.
When you read A Suitable Boy by Vikram Keith, there's the mother is spending all her years and time trying to matchmake for her daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
the young girl who's gone to university is in love with the professor who tells her poems, but the mother says, no, you cannot eat poems when there's hunger.
Mm-hmm.
You need a
Mm-hmm.
good
Mm-hmm.
businessman. So she ends up marrying a man who mends shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to look
Mm-hmm.
at the future. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
the issue of love, and then borrowing and lending, and then keeping up
Mm-hmm.
with the Jonases. Yeah, a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
we try to be who we are not. We try to live according to, we don't cut our clothes according to our size. We try to
Mm-hmm.
live more expensive lives than we can really afford, just to
Mm-hmm.
impress people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why you have
Grace,
people
I'm
in,
here. Oh,
okay,
sorry about that. Continue, continue.
you have people in Kibera saying they live in Woodley, and you have people in Kawangware saying they live in Lavington.
Yes,
Just trying
there
to
is
keep up with
this.
the Joneses.
There's a song by Lady JD, a
Mm-hmm.
Tanzanian singer, who talks about a man who rides in a Pajero, who is flaunts big clothing, but when he goes home, he goes to Kibra. You know, he packs his car far away and goes home to his little house. You know, yeah, keeping up
Yeah, and
appearances. So
yeah,
true.
this book also about the issue of keeping up with the Joneses and borrowing and lending
Mm-hmm.
money brings into point the no longer at ease where Obi has to borrow money. He has borrowed so much money that he cannot attend his mother's funeral. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and now
Mm-hmm.
because of that,
Mm-hmm.
he has to get into corruption because
Mm-hmm.
he wants to please his family. And we do that a lot
Mm-hmm.
here in the diaspora. You cannot
Yeah.
tell your family, I do not have the money. You cannot tell people at home, you don't have money. You want to be
Mm-hmm.
the bank. You're the bank
Mm-hmm.
roller. When there's this
Yeah.
problem, when someone's goat is sick, when people are using your money to go out to the bar and drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, Grace, on a lighter note, I think part of the fun parts of reading for me
Yeah.
was the experience around it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that in Form 4, what we looked forward to, Grace, you were talking about, it was the Kenya National Traveling Theatre.
Oh
And
yes, yes, yes.
we in Form 4 were lucky to have, I believe that's when Jalango was, Jalango that you know, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
used to be on the traveling tours, and they came to our school with a group of really, really, really amazing people, and they acted out coming to birth scenes from it. They acted out the powerful plays of Kifo Kisimani. Let me tell you, Grace, whenever we heard they were coming, we packed the theater, we packed the hall. Everyone needed to be there. It was so amazing to see how drama, and I know people watch Drama Fest, but to be able to see how these stories can connect to real life and how acting is actually really, really cool. It was such a great experience. It was
Grace,
so
are you
good. It
talking
was so
about
good.
Jalas?
Jalas. I
Jalas.
remember
So
him when
this
he was
point,
still like a GT like
I
this.
want to congratulate Jalas on his beautiful wedding in Taita. There's a
Uh-huh.
Taita song that I love. We used to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Charoni. Do you know Charoni?
No.
Ewe Charoni ni wasi, kila popote nigome. Tafuta mtu nigome. So Taita is good.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice
Yeah,
song.
in theater, we had Opio Muma, the late Opio Muma. We had Alex Derrito, the late Alex
Mm-hmm.
Derrito. We had,
Mm-hmm.
I understand Professor Nyang Nyong'o was a great actor, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
Lupita Nyong'o takes
Ah,
acting for me. It
okay.
was always in the
It
family
runs in the
theater.
family.
Yes, and do you know that some of the plays were banned? Like I Will Marry When I Want was banned by Ngugi and I told you Ngugi, Michelle Mugo and Michelle Ngugi. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ngugi,
Mm-hmm.
the books were banned. So during my time, Grace, we had such a different experience with our literature because I was taught by activists, I was taught by rebels, I was taught by people who were in and out of detention. And they
Mm-hmm.
taught us to be ready to die for justice and to die for
Mm-hmm.
freedom, and at a very
Mm-hmm.
young age. So it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to remove some
Mm-hmm.
of these beliefs and some of these human rights aspects from us
Mm-hmm.
at this age because we
Mm-hmm.
grew up knowing
Mm-hmm.
that you had to fight for your right, you had to fight for your
Mm-hmm.
freedom. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
we also did something called East African poems,
Mm-hmm.
and they had such an impact on us. And Grace, I just want to take this minute to read a short poem called Grass Will Grow by Jonathan Carriera. It was my favorite, and it's right here on my screen. It
Mm-hmm.
says, if you should take my child, Lord, give my hands strength to dig his grave. Cover him with earth. Lord, send a little rain, for grass will grow. If my house should burn down so that the ashes sting the nostrils, making the eyes weep, then Lord, send a little rain, for grass will grow. But Lord, do not send me madness. I ask for tears. Do not send me moon-hard madness to lodge snag in my skull. I would you send me hordes of horses, galloping, crashing, but do not break the yoke of the moon on me. So that poem had a lot of impact, and it shows that
Mm-hmm.
whatever tribulations, whatever tragedy you go through, grass will grow. You have to have
Mm-hmm.
hope, and you should never
Mm-hmm.
ever give up.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
powerful. That's powerful. Thanks
Mm,
for reading that.
mm,
So Grace, we've talked about a few stories, as we said. Welcome to Kumechacha. This is the mini book club that we're doing today. We're reflecting on high school set books that we love. We
mm,
talk about our own our experiences. We have read similar books, but how they're relevant to us are different. So I think it's
mhm.
really cool to be having that conversation. We'll be
Yes.
posting the books that we're talking about after the show. So if you're looking
Mhm.
for to know what happened, just tune in. We'll be posting that soon. Grace, what other books would we want to talk about? We've already talked about the Merchant of Venice. We covered Coming to Bath and how the Coming to Bath talks about the story of Paulina Kelo and Martin Were as
Mhm.
so Paulina is a girl who has come from the village. She's a Luo girl who's come from the village. She has been sent home. The marriage preparation was done in Dala, and Martin, who is working in somewhere near industrial area, is
Mhm.
going to pick her up from the bus station. And it talks about the story goes through the journey of Paulina becoming more assertive as the day goes by. She's very, very naive. She's
Mhm.
dependent on her husband for her daily needs. And very soon you start seeing cracks in the marriage that happen when there's physical and mental abuse that happens. There's
Mhm.
also frustration that happens within the relationship because of their failure to bear a child. At this
Mhm.
same time, however, it finds Martin, who is started off coming to Nairobi with big dreams and has become disillusioned. And the author points a great parallel between the increasing disillusionment because of jobs are not the expectations of what life would be in Nairobi is not the same when they live on the ground. The lack of having a family that African families hold children in high esteem, and so that frustrates the family even deeper. While this is happening, Paulina, on the other hand, she is slowly and surely getting to embrace her surroundings. She's becoming more assertive. She's looking for opportunities. She actually engages in an extramarital affair with someone else in order to get a child to bring some peace into the family. So does Martin as well. And so the story finds two people in a very interesting stage in life, where one seems to be going up, the other one seems to be going down, and it's very complex. There's a lot of broken dreams. There's a lot of unmet expectations. But what I like about it, Grace, is they talk about these people diverge. They go on different paths, and later on they meet back again. And at that time, Paulina has gone off on her own. She had a child with another man, but the child ended up dying at the protest in Kisumu. I believe it's tied to, I don't quite remember, it was tied to an actual event that happened. So there's some relevance to the story. And the story ends with hope that Paulina and Martin meet back again, that the promise of independence, the promise of coming to birth is still a journey. And that's what I love so much about the story. Coming to birth means very many things. And coming to birth doesn't necessarily happen automatically, quickly, without complications. It's probably a process of coming back and diverging and having hope, but with caution, because they come back together again, and there's promise of a child. There's a promise for this couple to fulfill their dreams as they did when they first met in the bus station all those many years ago. So it's a wonderful story tied to a wonderful woman. I didn't know that she was a white woman who was married to a Luo man, and she has such a grasp on how she talks about people. So it was really, really impactful, Grace, for me. I think I've read so many websites that talk about Coming to Birth being one of the top 10 set books that have been read by Kenyan students.
That's awesome. And I think it's important for teachers of literature or our parents to encourage children to read our African literature books at an early age. It's important to know your culture before you understand other people's culture. Because when earlier on in our preteens, we were reading books like Hansel and Gretel, Jack and the Beanstalk, and all that. But now, when you come across the real literature, which we resonate with, like African oral literature, then you come to realize you understand your people, you understand your society, and you can be talking from a point of an informed point, and making informed choices. So we also did books like My Life in Crime later on, and we did Son of Mangwa, Son of a Woman in Mombasa. And this was amazing. It was a book we started doing, but we were stopped. I think the teacher was not comfortable. It was called After 4:30, and they changed it to another book. But I like the African oral literature because those of us who grew up in the village, half in the village, half in the city, really, really understood. And those who had not been to the village, the children in the city were able to, identify with the book. Because they say who has lost their culture has no direction. It's important to know your culture, because then you understand who you are, you understand your people, you understand your history. And literature is one way of understanding history, whether it's your own history or other people's history. It's a it's a
and Grace,
journey.
one thing I want to add to that of oral literature. For me, in my time, it happened that although we had written books, the way we expressed and got to build that was through the Kenya drama festivals. It was through Kenya music festivals. It was through Kenyan choral festivals, because then is when we would hear and get taught about these songs. I remember such great plays and such great music coming from schools in the villages. When you go to the national music festivals and you see this choir and you wonder where this choir came from, they tell such powerful stories, their command of instruments. And oral literature is not just about voice, it's about the other instruments that create the story. It was so powerful, Grace, let me tell you.
Did you ever sing Coletta? Did you ever sing Coletta?
No, I didn't sing Coletta. I was in music first. I didn't sing Coletta.
You don't know Coletta?
No, I didn't do Coletta. Is that a
Coletta before we close?
Yes. Please
Nena
do
dino
Coletta.
kileru gitienza. Nena
Mhm.
dino kileru gitienza. Nena yudo koninya andere lando koleta. Nena yudo koninya andere lando koleta. Labo titi.
Hey, 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 hey.
Yeah, we did a lot. We did a lot of the drama. And we did a lot of
Yeah.
you can never forget. And when you did exams, it was so visual. Like you could remember that so easily. And a lot of us who were in the drama and festival clubs and choir did very well, very well in literature. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. I was in music. I was in choir too.
Oh, you're in choir too?
Yeah. So I
What
remember.
is
I
it?
remember a lot of those songs.
Yeah, especially the African folk songs.
Yes.
The African
Yes.
folk song. Okay, when we were singing the English songs, and this is where you said you need to be at home with your culture. When we were singing English songs, our voice would squeeze like a cricket, like we could. In the calm of evening, when the seagulls fly so, we were almost not breathing, and then we came to the folk song. We lost ourselves to the words of the song.
You just sing your whole spirit.
It was amazing. It was amazing, huh?
Grace, what was that song?
And we were ourselves.
Yes.
We were real, we were authentic. But when they're singing the Holy and the Ivy, oh Lord.
Which one was that song that we sang last year for Christmas that we should probably sing again?
Oh, McGildy.
Oh my God.
Right. Try McGildy. When the winter wind is fighting, when the winter wind is fighting.
There you go. Okay, so
1, 2, 3.
when the winter.
When the winter. 1, 2, 3.
When the winter wind is fighting, McGildy, McGildy, hey now. Okay, start. When the winter wind is fighting, when the winter.
1, 2, 3. Let's start. 1, 2, 3.
When the wind is fighting, McGildy, hey now. And the sleet and snow are fighting, McGildy, hey now. And we're down the choir, McGildy, hey now. That was bad.
Hi, Grace, that thing is hard. Let's do our own song.
Which one?
Let's do Winyama Nyasure. You see the difference. How now I'm authentic. I'm myself. I can breathe. Winyama Nyasure, wang Winyama Nyasure,
Kadano.
And you know, I would visualize in my head. I can see the winyo, I can see the bird, I can see the wang. Yes. And I was at peace. So it's just important, to let your children understand their culture, understand their literature before we go into the world and understand the Tolstoys and the Kareninas and the Shakespeare. Because again, reading your own books develops your language quite early. You become fluent. You become a prowess in your own language.
Absolutely. Grace is Kumechacha.
The dogs are barking. Kumechacha. We want to thank the viewers.
Hey, the cat is as Grace. This is just the right time because I'm seeing a cat here playing funny games. Yeah. It's around Grace. It's around 4:59. I hope you're about to cook dinner because that's my plan today, to eat early and go to bed.
Yes.
Yeah. I hope everyone who's watching has had a great evening. Start reading early. It's not too late to read. Grace will share the stories. We'll share the links, not links necessarily, but the names and the authors of the book, so that you may also share it and buy it if you want.
Yes, and you can go beyond the set book and just let your children or even yourself as a person read beyond the set book. The set books are more like a guideline, but it always is important to get a little more, get the extra.
Yes.
Yeah, the success
Yes.
in doing just a little bit of the extra.
Mm-hmm.
So, bye bye, Grace. Bye
Bye,
from
Grace.
Philadelphia,
Yes.
Kumechacha.
Kumechacha.
Kumechacha,
Yes.
Kumechacha.
Kumechacha. Not next Sunday, but the next Sunday, same time, same place, right here on Tujipange Africa. Kumechacha.
Kumechacha.